Welcome back to the class titled Strategic Communication for Sustainable Development. My name is Aradhana Malik and I will be helping you with this course. And we've had two classes till now. We've had two sessions. The first session focused on the introductory concepts, and the second session focused on the participatory models for sustainable development. And now today in this particular session we will talk about how communication relates to development and how it relates to specifically to sustainable development. So that is what we will talk about in this lecture. Okay. Communication for sustainable development. How is communication related to sustainability? Now, we were talking about resources, we were talking about what the community has, we were talking about how the community shapes itself, we were talking about how the community realizes what it wants. Now, from that translation, from that understanding, the community shares whatever it has with the people who can and want to help the community become more comfortable for the people living in that community, and that is what development is. So we take this and we say, okay, how, you know, the communication is the process that forms the bridge between this awareness and implementation of that awareness. I understand what the community has. Now, when I talk to the community, communication is the medium through which these ideas are translated from a sense of awareness about the community to the function, to how whatever is there can be used by the community, okay, or translation of those resources into benefits for the stakeholders. We use resources to make our lives more comfortable, to enhance the quality of life we have, and that is what communication does. Dialogue facilitates development through conscientization. Conscientization is the process of developing a critical awareness of one's social reality through reflection and action. And this is from a paper by Rod Loy Took, who discusses the Buddhist philosophy of sustainable development and communication, and it's a very nice paper. I will give you a reference, the entire reference, so you can look it up if you are able to do that. And it's an amazingly written paper that helps us understand how communication plays a role in sustainable development. The first thing that is talked about is how it alerts our consciousness, how our consciousness plays a role, or how dialogue helps, you know, how dialogue helps the awareness come about in our understanding of our social reality. So when we talk to others, when we discuss things with others, the awareness about what we are talking about comes in, and that process is facilitated through dialogue. You can go back and forth in your own mind about certain ideas, and you will still not be able to come to that rich a conclusion till you discuss those ideas with others. We have brainstorming sessions, we have discussions in class, something that somebody says stimulates something else in our minds. So we reflect in and through dialogue and the action, and dialogue facilitates this. You know, talking to others helps us bounce our ideas off of others, and that helps us come to a more enhanced awareness of what it is that we are dealing with in the community. The second benefit of dialogue, you know, sharing of ideas between two people, is shared knowledge, creation of shared knowledge, which is created when insiders and outsiders of the community meet in an informal and interpersonal communicative context to achieve desirable development in the local area through knowledge generation, knowledge acquisition, and knowledge sharing. Many people who want to make a difference to the community have never visited these communities. Many people who want to help communities have never really had a chance to sit down and understand what the community is all about. And I am a big proponent of immersion in the community. There is a lot of subliminal knowledge that we gain by just interacting with the community without any agenda, without any prior knowledge. So you go in and you just keep your eyes and ears open and listen and absorb the sights and sounds and smells of the community, and then let it all sink in from an outsider's perspective, and then share your interpretation of whatever it is that you have understood about the community with the people in the community, and an amazingly new kind of shared knowledge is created. So as insiders, we understand something about a community, and many times a lot of things that we tend to ignore as insiders are picked up by people who come from the outside. Okay, so I'll give you a very small example. It's irrelevant, but I'll still share it with you, and that's just about how communities sort of mingle and create shared knowledge. Now, I came to IIT Kharagpur in 2008. And I had never visited Bengal before this, the rural area in Bengal, and our campus is beautiful. So I came here and I started discussing things, and I used to enjoy long walks, and I started talking to my colleagues. And one day I remarked and I said, the birds here are so beautiful. In the morning when you go out for a walk, you hear these very nice sounds, all kinds of chirping and all kinds of colors you can see in the birds. And people who had been living here for many years, several decades, had not noticed this because it had become so much a part of their social milieu. And I said, I found this very nice looking flower, and they said, really, where? And I said, here. And they said, we see it every day, but it has never struck us how beautiful this is. Now, I had come here for the first time. I had never seen such a lush green walkable campus before this, and people who had lived here had taken this for granted, and they said, oh, it's dirty. And I mean, it's fine, it's part of our daily routine, there are lots of trees and lots of plants. But from the insider's perspective, what was being taken as for granted was something brand new to me, because I had seen all kinds of, colleges for me were concrete jungles. So this kind of greenery and heavy emphasis on nature and maintaining the greenery was new to me. And so I'm just sharing this with you, so just to give you an idea of how we perceive the same thing differently. So you come in, you see things, and you share this, and then we start realizing, we start becoming more and more alert to things around us. Similarly, when we talk to somebody, we say, okay, we've seen that so and so person, or I mean the social fabric, we gain a new understanding of the social fabric as outsiders, and then we share our ideas with the community, and a new type of knowledge is created, and that can only happen through dialogue. I may be thinking something, somebody else may be thinking something, but till we share those ideas, we cannot come to a mutual understanding about what it is that we are talking about. The third thing here is empowerment. Dialogue facilitates empowerment. Empowerment is the psychic energy required for human development and change. I feel that I am in control of my environment. I feel that my environment, I can change my environment. I can make a contribution to my environment, and that is empowerment. So when I talk about empowerment, it is what I feel, how much control I feel I am in of my environment, of what I am, of where I fit in, of where I belong. And so that comes through dialogue. When we talk about people, we realize how we fit in. I may have a perception about how I fit in, and then I talk to my peers, and then I realize maybe I'm able to make so much of a difference to my community that I did not think myself capable of, or that I did not think that I was allowed to make. And that is something that we can only learn through or that is something that we become aware of in and through dialogue. Then this Rodloy also talks about liberation, that is that comes about as a result of dialogue. And so when we talk about making a change in the environment, we also talk about engaging in dialogue with an aim to create a solid sense of self, an active concern for oneself in relation to others, so as to achieve meaningful human relationships. One is empowerment, I am able to do this. Two is my own unique self. I talk to people and I discover how I am unique, how what all I can do. And then when we feel that, you know, the freedom that comes with talking to people, we realize what our capacities are, the limits or the lack of limits that exists when we talk to people. And we say, you know, we feel hesitant in trying out new things, but when we talk to people, we realize that when we get together as a community, there is so much that we can achieve together. So the freedom this brings is immense. And the last thing that is discussed in this paper is self-reliance, which is something that we talked about earlier also, and that is involvement of people putting forward their views in an attempt to identify the needs of the community and have their voices translated into community agendas. So we are talking about you know, the community realizing what it can do, and when people talk to each other, they realize that many of them have similar goals for the community. So we identify the needs of the community, and we also realize that we are not alone in our attempts to do something for the community. So that is self-reliance. As a team, we can achieve so much, and within the community itself, we have so much of power, so many resources, so much of ability to do things, that many times the outsider just becomes a facilitator, and that is really what is required. The community needs to be empowered, and all this happens only through dialogue. So that is how communication is related to sustainable development. We spark off, we stimulate this discussion about what the community can do. We stimulate this discussion about what the community is all about, and in and through this discussion, in and through this going back and forth of ideas, we discover how much we have and how much we can do. And instead of sitting and cribbing and saying, I don't have this and I don't have that and my community is so bad and so this and so that, we realize the kind of resources we have, especially when an outsider comes. The outsiders, maybe the only goal the outsider has to understand what the community is all about, and because the outsider is not living the life of the community, the outsider sees the community from a very different perspective. So a balanced view of the resources and limitations comes to the fore as far as the outsider is concerned. And when the outsider engages in a dialogue with the insiders, that is when this difference in opinions is revealed, and that is when the process of empowerment and self-reliance and liberation and creation of shared knowledge and conscientization occurs. It's a difficult word, and I'm also learning how to pronounce it, so maybe you can practice it in the class. But it's an amazing paper, and I will share the details of the paper with you, and if you can find it, I think it would make for a very good read and understanding. Okay, sustainability communication. This includes communication about the environment, risk, and science. That is the resources, contingencies, and technology that can be used to deal with the contingencies to preserve resources and make them last as long as possible. Again, we have to be realistic. Nothing can go on forever. There's a paper, very nice paper called Is Sustainability Really Sustainable? So I will share that with you. Maybe you can have a discussion in your class about that. Amazingly written paper, you know, on what is it that we are talking about? How long do we want this balance to continue? Nothing can last forever. But anyway, now when we talk about sustainability communication, there is another view that discusses the ways in which communication and sustainability have been talked about in the literature, and that is the three perspectives of how communication relates to sustainability, or how communication and sustainability have been studied together. So the three ways are: one body of literature has studied or talks about communication for sustainability. So one aspect is talking about sustainability, coming to an understanding, a shared understanding of what it is that sustainability means. So it has the main objective of facilitating societal transformation towards the normative goals of sustainable development. That is communication for sustainability. Communication about sustainability focuses on sharing concepts and frames in the context of sustainable development. So it talks about how the different contexts are discussed as far as sustainable development is concerned, and communication of sustainability refers to the transference of information from a sender to a receiver in order to bring a certain motivation across. Let's discuss these things in detail. Communication about sustainability refers to a process in which information, interpretations and opinions regarding sustainability issues are exchanged and debated. We talk about sustainability, we discuss what sustainability means to us in different spheres. We talk about how we define sustainability, how we should define sustainability and why. And the function of this type of communication is deliberation, production of intersubjective or shared concepts and frames. So, understanding what sustainability is and defining sustainability, and understanding how different areas or how sustainability is understood in different contexts and from different frames of reference. And the effectiveness of this type of communication is assessed by the amount of attention the issue receives from the media. And how, when we talk about sustainability, who listens to us, who decides to act on it, who decides to do something about it. That is how the effectiveness of this type of communication is assessed. The second method of assessing effectiveness is who has access to the discourse and who influences the framing process, who decides how sustainability should be defined, who listens to these discussions, who understands how these discussions take place, who gets to contribute in this discussion, whose voice is heard, whose voice is not heard, whose definition eventually gets accepted as the most acceptable definition. Then the other method in which the effectiveness is assessed is the extent to which the discourse in one subsystem is compatible with discourses in other subsystems, and how likely it is to transfer important aspects from one subsystem to another, so that eventually action towards sustainable development can be taken. For example, the whole discussion about sustainability and sustainable development has been taking place with regards to the environment. We have been talking about how sustainability or sustainable development in the context of environmental development. But when we talk about the effectiveness of sustainable development, we are essentially discussing how the environmental issues are related to the economic issues, and how maybe science can contribute, and how the social scientists are talking about it, and how the concerns raised by this discourse in environmental sciences are accepted or dealt with by the social scientists. What is the impact on the people living in those environments? So we talk about planting trees. Do people really understand the need to plant trees? Why do they want to plant trees? What will they do with planting trees, etc.? And how do they react to what is being told to them? And I will share an example of how this discourse has influenced the way things are done in a state called Himachal Pradesh. And I have seen this on the roadside, that any time a tree is going to be cut, and again, I don't know if this is an impact or this is an effect of the discussions about sustainability, but there is definitely a heightened concern about cutting trees. Any time a tree is going to be cut, in many places I have seen that a pandit, a priest, comes and decides which day the tree is going to be cut, and then they tie this holy thread, a molly, around the tree, and then they pray to the tree for forgiveness for cutting it, and then the tree is cut. So if you are on a road, on a state highway, on any road in Himachal, and you see a thread tied around it, please understand that it's a marker in many places. Not a place where, of course, you have these little threads tied on branches, but if it's tied around the lower part of the trunk, it means that the tree is going to be cut, and the people who are going to cut it are asking the tree for forgiveness. So, the community has accepted it. Now, I don't know whether the discourse on sustainability influenced this practice, or whether this practice was part of the discourse on environmental sustainability. Again, you know, the historians and the people working in that region would be able to tell you more about it. So community, the community and the environment and the different people working, talking about sustainable development efforts need to work in tandem with each other, and the effectiveness of communication about sustainability is assessed by how the ideas of one aspect of sustainability of the, or how the discussion about sustainability in one science or one field translates into another. So a scientist will have something else to say, and the social scientist will perceive it in a different way and implement it, apply it, understand it in a different way, and that is how the effectiveness is assessed. The second type of discussion on sustainability focuses on the primarily monodirectional sender-receiver flow of communication, where the sender pursues a certain objective of communication. And here this is mostly about the experts and non-experts. So we talk about sustainability, we talk about the way sustainability efforts need to be implemented, and the functions here are, or the functions of this type of discourse or this type of communication are to inform and educate individuals and to achieve some type and level of social engagement and action. So one is talking about sustainability, coming to a shared understanding. The second is, there is this clear distinction between experts and laypersons. We are talking about community, we are talking about global warming, we are talking about environmental sustainability, we are talking about sustainability of the social fabric. We will tell you how to live your lives. So, and we'll do it through different ways. It could even be participative, but still there is a distinction between the experts and the laypersons who engage with the community depending on the needs of the community, and that is the communication of sustainability. We let the community know that something is required. We generate the need, we identify their needs, then we tell them that here is where we fit in, here is where our level of expertise fits in. The effectiveness of this type of communication is assessed by finding out whether the recipients have been reached, whether the people have actually understood the message, whether they have heard the message. So if we transmit something over mass media, we put something on television, we say we need to plant trees, we need to minimize the wastage of water, we need to minimize the use of electricity as far as possible, we need to look for alternative forms of energy. Who is listening to us? Are the people who are actually going to implement these ideas really listening to us? Are they understanding the message? Have they perhaps changed their values and beliefs? So when we talk about using renewable sources of energy, you know, many times we talk about solar energy. Solar energy is not renewable. It is just a seemingly unlimited source of energy, or a seemingly or it is a heavily underutilized source of energy, but it's not renewable. The sun has a life, however many millions or billions of years. So, you know, we say, okay, let's harness solar energy. Are people really understanding it? How many people have understood it? How many people are willing to install solar panels on their rooftops in order to use solar energy for heating water in their houses, for generating electricity? How many people are willing to understand that this can be used for different things? And how do we enhance the effectiveness of that? For example, to improve or to increase the, or to show people how solar energy could be harnessed into heating water. You know, I don't know if this was done, but one thing that could be done would be to just put a pot of water outside and say that if you put it out in the sun, it gets heated. So that is what these panels do. They just take the heat energy and then they heat the water that is there in the tank, and that is then sent to the house. So, you know, I mean, just showing people how this takes place, that even if you put a pot of water out in the sun for some time, the water does get heated. You put your food out, the food gets heated. So, you know, solar cookers and all. So you say if you put this added device, it gets heated faster, the energy is concentrated. So there is some kind of scaffolding with what people know. And then when people start accepting this, then you sort of move on to a different type of technology. So, you know, that is a way of reaching out to people by talking, by discussing things like an expert who's still connected to the community that they are talking about. Okay. The third aspect is communication for sustainability. This really focuses on knowledge generation, social learning, collaboratively developing solutions for sustainability problems, etc. So the function of this type of communication is to facilitate social transformation towards the normative goals of social development. And you know, this is about sending out messages over a period of time, sending out messages in such a way that the community not only listens to us, the community starts internalizing what is being given to it. So the first was communication about sustainability. We discuss what sustainability means. Then we talk about communication of sustainability. I am the expert and you are the layperson, and if you believe me, then you will stand to benefit from whatever it is that I'm telling you. And when we talk about communication for sustainability, we talk about empowerment, we talk about generation of new knowledge, creation of knowledge, and then stimulation within the community to generate new kinds of knowledge, collaboratively developing solutions, coming up with new ideas from whatever resources they have, and then moving on to doing things on their own. And that is where sustainability really starts. Okay, so how do we move from communicating about sustainability to communicating for sustainability is what we will be discussing in this whole series of lectures. Okay, and that is where we will stop today, and in the next session we will discuss some approaches of sustainable communication. So thank you very much for listening.